Newt Gingrich is gonna discuss science. This ought to be fun.
Let me just ask you a question for a second. Assume for a minute that we had the capacity to actually decide the planet's temperature. So we could do whatever policies you think would work. What's the right temperature?
For the planet itself?
For the planet. I mean, it's always amazed me because I'm an amateur paleontologist. And I look at, I've been at the University of Chicago, or the Field Museum in Chicago, looking at dinosaurs from the Antarctic. I've also been in Wisconsin looking at the ice sheets, what's left over from the glacial moraine, when you had literally a mile-thick ice coming all the way down. What kind of hubris does it take to say, I know exactly what this planet's temperature ought to be, and I'm going to manage it to that effect?
Well, I'll give you the hubris. This is my hubris. I think the average temperature for the past 10,000 years, where we've actually had human civilization, would be nice to stay within that if we can. And there's no reason to think that we can't. The problem is, if we put the foot on the accelerator with this experiment we're doing with the only planet that we know, and we're wrong, and we wind up cooking the planet, that's a bad outcome you can't recover from. There are alternatives to using intensive carbon-based fuels. We should be moving in that direction.
Friend.
Never a senator.
So since we're talking about science,
yes,
the age of the dinosaurs was dramatically warmer than this is right now, and it didn't cook the planet. And in fact, life was fine.
Life was fine. Life was fine, but not for people.
The number of people leaving Minnesota this evening to get to the Caribbean versus the number of people leaving the Caribbean to try to get to Minnesota would argue that slightly warmer wouldn't be a crisis.
This is not okay. It's not okay that CNN has on Newt Gingrich every day and treats him like a respectable human being who you should listen to and hear out his opinion because he was Speaker of the House, he's esteemed and all this stuff. No. This is dangerous. And this is the problem with CNN. Their bias is towards two things. Number one is sensationalism. So you cover a story about Kim Kardashian's ass in the middle of a serious story about Syria because you want to get ratings, right? And the other one is a bias towards neutrality over objectivity. So everything is debatable. Everything is 50-50. And this way, you make it so that you never piss off the conservatives and they scream about, you have a liberal bias. Although they still do it anyway, so I don't know why CNN even bothers with the neutrality bias. But you try to appease the conservatives who scream that you're biased and appease the liberals who would say you're biased, in the conservative direction. But you're not actually doing your job. Your job is to do news and do factual reporting about information and world events. But it gets lost in all the noise because you just have assholes on TV giving their opinion and not backed up by science, not backed up by reality. Why not have a panel of climate scientists on Crossfire? If you're going to talk about the climate, go to the actual experts who know what they're talking about. Don't go to Newt Gingrich. What the fuck does he know? I'm an amateur paleontologist. What does that even mean? Dude, you didn't know anything about your profession when you were a congressman, okay? You didn't know anything about economics, you didn't know anything about government policy, and you faked your way through that. So clearly you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to science. So let me answer his question, because Van Jones tries to refute it, but of course, conservatives, what do? They railroad over liberals who are like apologetic and weak, like, I'd like to respectfully disagree with you, and blah, 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 blah. Here's the problem, Newt. If it gets warmer, which it is doing, okay, there's going to be famine. There's going to be drought. There's going to be food shortages. There is going to be, here's the really scary one, water shortages. In fact, by the year 2100, according to a new study that was released, actually I think it was about a week and a half ago now, not that long ago, they said that 1/5 of the world population is not going to have access to water by the year 2100. Now, you think the world is already chaotic and there's already too many wars. Wait until 1/5 of the people on the planet need water or they die. You'll see wars breaking out all over the place. Now, Newt might not care, and he might think naively, well, that's just a third world problem. That doesn't affect the U.S. Think again, buddy. Guess what? Guess where they get their water from in the Midwest? They get it from snow caps on mountaintops. Well, when the climate warms to a certain point, not going to be cold enough on those mountaintops to have snow, which then melts that they use as fresh water. So the Midwest is slowly running out of fresh water. Yeah, that might be something to panic over. Not actually creating enough food because we have a drought might be something to panic over. Watching the sea levels rise and places that we can't do without today, watching places like New York go underwater, New Orleans go underwater and stay there, Florida, South Florida go underwater and stay there, you might view that as a problem when the time actually comes.